Hello again. Welcome to another Fresh from the Theater review. I've been doing these about 2 years now. The first Fresh from the Theater review I ever did was for the first It movie that was released theatrically. So I guess this review is kind of special, where I give my thoughts on It Chapter 2. And before I get into it, just want to say, I did not think the first It movie was a great film. I know it got a lot of praise, a lot of people loved it, but I thought it was a real clusterfuck mess of a film. It was just full of very inconsistent tones. One moment it was trying to be serious, one moment it was trying to be funny. Some moments actually did well as far as being creepy, others were not scary, they were just laughable, and then they were just kind of embarrassingly bad at their attempts to be thrilling and scary, and the acting from almost all the kid actors was really over the top. Everybody was either just screaming or just speaking their lines rapidly like they had to take a shit. And at the same time, I give it credit for it was not boring. It was like Batman vs. Superman. It kept me interested to the end. And there were some really well done moments, and some of the child actors like Finn Wolfhard really did a good job, and the actress who played Beverly Marsh as a kid, Sophie Lillis, she did a pretty decent job, but overall I just couldn't really get into it. But I was open to seeing a part 2 if they made it, and the film actually became the most successful R-rated horror movie of all time, so yeah, that was a guarantee. And after I saw the trailers, and you can see my reaction to those on the Movie Buff Reactions channel, I thought they were pretty okay. So I thought, I'll go into this, and I went in kind of with an open mind and a little optimistic, because the trailers actually did make it look like it could be scary. And I'll just say this right here before I get into my deeper thoughts. This movie sucked. I did not enjoy watching it, and the theater experience wasn't that great either. There were pretty loud people around, some people even going on their phones throughout the movie. Maybe it's a sign of how bad it was, but even without the dickish audience, I don't think I would have enjoyed this film. Like, if I was watching this film at home on my TV by myself, I'd probably be just yelling at the top of my lungs at just how frustrating this film was. And I got back a little while ago so I could make notes, and these are the notes I made. Just, as you can see, there's quite a few of them. I guess I'll start with the opening scene. The opening scene of this film was actually pretty good. It set a good, intense mood where we see this young gay couple in Derry, Maine at a carnival. And they're a nice couple, they're not bothering anybody, and then we see this gang of what appear to be some teenagers and some guys in their early 20s who, out of the blue, just start harassing them, just knocking their drinks out of the way, being homophobic assholes, calling them faggots with a real nasty grit. And then they attack them, beat one of them up, and throw the guy into the river. And then, like, his boyfriend follows, runs down the river, tries to find him, and he sees him getting pulled out of the river by Pennywise. And right away, Bill Skarsgård is still not a good Pennywise, but this opening scene was surprisingly very brutal, really set a good tone for the rest of the film. If only the rest of the film followed this intense, brutal tone, because from here, it just becomes, like the first film, an uneven mess of inconsistent genre tones of humor and thrills. Just, it doesn't know what it wants to be, and the whole film is really rushed. We don't really get enough time to get much development on our lead characters. I mean, yes, we saw them all in the first film as kids, but we don't get much time to get introduced to them as adults. It just jumps into everything, and the introduction scenes are all less than about 5 minutes, I think, except for maybe the parts with Mike, who thankfully is given a lot more character and shit to do in this film, to the point that he's not the token black kid that he became in the first movie. And I'll just say, for a film that really plays at a rushed pace, like too fast to really grasp what's going on, to understand everything, this movie really dragged on. This film is 2 hours and 50 minutes, and you really fucking feel it. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that was a great film that was really long and didn't feel like it was almost 3 hours. This movie, it's shorter than Heaven's Gate, but it felt just as gruelingly long as Heaven's Gate. Like, this film, it makes you think of the lyric from Journey's Don't Stop Believing. The movie never ends, it just goes on and on and on. That's just what I felt watching this, and by the 90-minute mark, the halfway mark, I was just like this while watching the film. I was stunned at how slow this was going and how many scenes were dragging out despite their rapid pace. And the asshole audience didn't help either. And the plot, I'm not going to go into it too much because the plot is pretty much known universally by everyone who's either seen the trailer, read the book, or heard about the miniseries. The kids are all grown up now, the clown is back, and they gotta stop it. So yeah, they all come back, and the adult cast in this film, they got some pretty good actors. James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, and some actors I'm not familiar with. Isaiah Mustafa as the new Mike Hanlon, Jay Ryan as Ben Hanscom, and James Ransone as Eddie Kasbrak, Andy Bean as Stanley Uris, and James McAvoy, he's a good actor, but if he's not given something great to work with, there's really not much he can do to salvage the film. I mean, I give him credit because even though a lot of what he's given is really not that great, he's putting his all into it. That is pretty clear. He's trying his best. And Jessica Chastain, she did pretty okay. She doesn't get a lot of well done character development, but she did her best. She and McAvoy are the best actors in this film, and you can't fault them for trying. Bill Hader as Richie Tozer. Richie was my favorite character in both the miniseries, both as a kid and an adult, played by Seth Green and Harry Anderson. And he was my favorite character in the first movie. Finn Wolfhard really did an outstanding job as the character. Played him, even when he was annoying, he was still a lot of fun. Bill Hader, I've liked him in a lot of stuff, but man, they really fucked up with the Richie character here. He's supposed to be a comedian, and Bill Hader's been real funny before, but Richie just was not that funny here. He had an occasional funny line, but for the most part, he fell flat, and maybe they're saying he's not really that good of a comedian in the universe, but he really didn't stand out as the heart and soul of the group as he had before. And Isaiah Mustafa as Mike Hanlon, I like that they gave him more to do, but while part 2 of the miniseries was really bad, Tim Reid stuck out as Mike in that version, and he played the character as pretty smart, level-headed, and calm. This character is just way too hyper, doing that constipation acting I criticized in the first film. He's just walking around most of the time, yelling, screaming, looking like he's stressed, looking like he's practically sweating. The character just became loud and annoying, and Jay Ryan as adult Ben. I thought the character Ben was kind of bland and forgettable in the first theatrical It. In this one, he's even more bland and forgettable. All he has going for him is that he still has a crush on Beverly, and that's about it. He doesn't really have much else that stands out other than he got thin, which was a major part of him as an adult before, and throughout the film we keep getting Pennywise taunting him with, "You're still a fatty!" There was just nothing memorable about the character, and Eddie, oh my fucking god. Eddie, I said he was my least favorite in the first film because he was so obnoxious, so unlikable, and he is even more obnoxious and unlikable here. I hated this character even more than the first film. And we get flashbacks to the first film. Actually, we get new scenes that apparently weren't featured in the first film with the younger cast returning. And with the exception of Eddie, those were my favorite parts. The kid actors had chemistry. They were actually, for the most part, better done than the whole movie we got with them as kids. And Eddie just, every time he was on screen as a kid in those scenes, he brought them down. And as an adult, he was just more fucking unbearable. He's screaming, he's aggressive, he's just unpleasant to be around, to watch, and the one prop I give for the adult Eddie is the actor they got, he really looks like an adult version of the kid they had play Eddie in the first film. That's the one prop I'll get. He looks just like what this kid would probably look like as an adult. And Stan Uris, not much to say. Just like the original, he dies as an adult pretty early, and unlike the miniseries, where I actually thought his suicide scene was shocking and pretty disturbing, where we saw him dead after slitting his wrist, this one just lacked any empathy or reason to care. And Henry Bowers. If you thought Henry Bowers was pointless, added nothing in the first film, which I did, if you thought he didn't really amount to much, that he felt kind of useless in the miniseries, he's really fucking useless here. Like, at least in the original, he stabbed Mike, putting him in a near-death state. Here, he doesn't even accomplish that, and he dies pretty early, and that's not enough of a spoiler to put it in later. He's in, he's out. His scene in the hospital was the only decent scene with him, where he gets ecstatic after seeing one of Pennywise's balloons appear, and smiles with glee every time he sees it. Other than that, nothing. There was just nothing real special about this character, and the only scene where he causes any serious damage to the Losers Club is when he stabs Eddie, which I'm all for, because fuck Eddie. And even then, that doesn't really amount to much, because Eddie gets stabbed in the fucking face, and despite that, he kind of just walks it off. He gets a bit of gauze put on and then carries on with the rest of the group. And that was not the first really dumb moment, but that really stuck out I don't think you can walk that kind of shit off. And there would probably be a lot, that was a pretty long fucking knife that got shoved in there. I think that would have caused more fucking damage than what we saw. And I guess the biggest letdown for me with this film was it wasn't scary. The closest moments that came to scaring me were a few jump scares just because they were unexpected, but I got over them pretty fast. And the most intense scene for me, as far as chills go, was a scene where I'm wondering, is a balloon gonna pop? Just because loud, and there really wasn't anything scary. Pennywise, yes, he looks like a demonic clown, but Bill Skarsgård, he's still doing that fucking retarded, grinning, goofy, hello, performance. The scene where he killed Georgie in the first one, that was already, like, I know everyone thought that was shocking because Georgie got killed, his arm got ripped out, but it didn't do nothing for me. I've seen enough Dario Argento films. That shit didn't make me flinch. Here, we get another scene where he kills a little kid, and this little kid was even more stupid than Georgie from the first film, because realistically, Georgie would have just bolted the moment he saw Pennywise without makeup and his teeth. This version, this girl has like a 2-minute scene where she's talking directly to Pennywise, and she doesn't run away because apparently he charms her over. But why would that work on her, considering how he fucking looks? It was so fucking stupid! And speaking of stupid stuff with kids, Bill finds his original bike from many years ago, and while riding it, he comes across the storm drain where Georgie was apparently dragged under, and he sees this kid who now lives in his old home, and he warns the kid not to go near the drain. The kid mentions that he hears voices in his bathtub drain, and Bill, despite only meeting this kid once, I guess because he sees Georgie in him, but he just met this kid, becomes really obsessed with making sure that this kid doesn't fall victim to Pennywise, to the point that he pretty much stalks this kid, goes to the carnival and follows him into the House of Mirrors, and even the kid is like, "Why are you following me?" And his efforts to save this fucking kid pretty much end up being in vain, because Pennywise gets him, and the scene in the hall, the fun house, Hall of Mirrors, it looked like it could be tense in the trailer, but it dragged on like so many other scenes, and the whole scene is Bill, this kid in the middle, Pennywise on another sheet of glass, and Pennywise headbutting the window, the glass, till it breaks, while Bill's on the other side trying to punch it, actually trying to break it with his fist, while this kid's in the middle looking terrified. And all I was thinking was, run, you fucking brat! Just fucking run! But no, he stays there. And don't give me that he's paralyzed with fear argument, because Pennywise gets him, and I will give it a minor amount of points for actually showing the kid spurt blood just get ripped up in that brief moment. Like, I didn't flinch with Georgie, I didn't flinch really with here, but I give it props for actually having the guts to kill the kid and actually show it. After that, Bill, despite the group working together, the whole film is pretty much the group working to get childhood memorabilia to use in this ritual that will supposedly kill Pennywise, but Bill decides to go at it alone. I didn't go into this film thinking it was going to be as bad as it was, that it would rile me up as much as it did. I usually don't get loud or angry as that much when I do these vlog reviews, but this film legitimately frustrated me, pissed me off, and the characters, the decisions they make, the pacing, everything just rubbed me in the worst way possible. There were so many dumb things in it, like Eddie confronting the leper that traumatized him as a kid. And when he confronts it, it vomits black goo in his face. And for 3 seconds, 3 or 5, as it's vomiting in his face, we suddenly hear a small sample from Julie Newton's Angel of the Morning, and what? We see flashbacks to Richie as a kid, and I don't know, maybe tying into the homophobic attack in the opening scene. We see Richie playing video games with this kid, and this kid turns out to be Henry Bauer's cousin, and the kid, not wanting, I don't know, Henry to think he's friends with him, calls him a fairy, and then Henry calls him a faggot, and then Richie runs away crying, and Pennywise appears and screams at him, "I know your secret! Your dirty secret!" And we see a few more scenes like this throughout the film, and it makes me wonder, is Richie supposed to be gay? Is he supposed to be a closeted gay man? But they never really verify it or follow it up. It's like they open this door, but they never followed through with it. It just felt weird and pointless. And the restaurant scene, which, while kind of out of place in the miniseries, especially with its upbeat tone, was pretty well done and really showed the friendship between the group. Here, it's just way too in your face, non-stop, everything just kind of bombarded at you, and it all culminates with the killer fortune cookies like in the original, except this time Mike takes a chair and literally smashes it on the table, screaming, "It's not real! It's not real!" Which makes him seem really fucking unstable. Like, yeah, that's a good way to put Mike. He comes off as really unstable throughout this film. And the Chinese waitress, when she comes in and sees him smashing the chair on the table, she's unrealistically pretty cool about it. Just doesn't make a big deal. They don't get booted out. They're allowed to leave of their own free will. There are too many moronic scenes to list here, and I just don't want to be relaying the most moronic scenes in the film, so I'm just going to talk about one more scene that I actually think was pretty well done. We see a flashback to Ben as a kid, and he imagines Beverly talking to him in the classroom. She's smoking. Once again, props to movies that actually show people smoking these days. And he thinks that she likes him, and when he leans in to kiss her, she's like, "No. Why think I'd ever like someone as fat and disgusting as you?" And I'm like, oh, it's Pennywise. And it was actually a very well done sequence. This flashback actually had some tension to it. Like I said, no real scares, but it was very well done in far as a little suspense goes. And we see Bev, before turning into Pennywise, catch fire. And the shot of her on fire is a very good image. Like I said, with the exception of whenever Eddie was on screen, the flashbacks with the kids were actually pretty well done and had a little bit of weight to them, more than any scene with them in the movie ever did. And they have stuff like, will we still be friends as adults? Why wouldn't we be? Do you see your parents friends with the people they were friends with in middle school? And as someone who's gone through having to drift apart from friends he was once close to from high school and middle school, that scene carried a little bit of weight to it. That's all I really got to talk about before jumping into the finale. And if you don't want to know the spoilers, if you want to see this movie for yourself, this is your point to stop and last thing I'll say, I know I kept saying last thing, but I think this is actually, I should have mentioned this earlier, this is somewhat important. If you are prone to seizures, I don't recommend seeing this movie. There are several sequences where we see rapid flashing lights, rapid bright blue lights, and I'm not an expert on epilepsy, but I think if you're prone to seizures, this film is probably gonna be a nightmare for you. And actually, that's actually the funniest thing about this movie. The fear of people getting seizures from this film is actually scarier than any actual attempts at horror that this movie makes. Okay. Finale time. For a really badly made, badly told story, the finale is actually the best part of the film. They put a lot into this finale, and while it doesn't work 100% of the time, there are a lot of stuff here that I actually think looks pretty good. Like, the design of the cave that they go into to fight Pennywise is actually a pretty good-looking cave. It looks decently dark and creepy, and I actually like that they included Mike in this finale. Like, Mike does not get injured and has to sit it out. They actually bring him in, and whether or not he actually contributes anything useful is debatable, but I like that they didn't have him sit it out. They didn't have him get injured and be on the sidelines for the finale like the miniseries and the book. They actually had him included, which was nice. Stan obviously can't join, but it's nice that they had all the losers together. And the ritual of Chud sequence, where they're burning all of their childhood memorabilia, was actually well done. Them throwing something in. This was a really good sequence, I feel. Like, out of place, the scene would be pretty good on its own if you just watched it without knowing the context. And then everything gets batshit insane. The ritual doesn't work. Apparently the ritual was started by Native Americans many years ago. And I forgot to mention this, but Mike got Bill to believe that the ritual would work after apparently spiking his drink with some kind of root. And we get this really trippy LSD-like sequence where he's seeing the history of the ritual, Mike going on a Native American trip, as he put it. And we see Pennywise in the finale appear, and yes, he does become the big fucking spider, but it looks a lot better than the one in the original. And it's still not scary, but it looks better. And while I did not care for most of these characters, and I had no real sadness when Eddie bought it, I mean, his death scene was well acted, but if it had been a more likable character, I might have cared. And they're running through the caves. We get the bright, headache-inducing lights. And we get a scene where Bill ends up in a flooded basement where he watches both himself as a kid and his younger brother Georgie. Georgie's ghost confronting young Bill, saying, "You let me go out by myself, not because you were sick, but because you lied, you faked being sick because you didn't want to play with me." And young Bill admits it. And this is kind of there's some symbolism to the scene where the adult Bill is forced to kill this image, this hallucination of his little brother. I see it as a way of killing the past. I thought this was a well done sequence, and he also has to kill his younger self to get away from it, get away from the guilt. And we also get this part where Beverly is trapped in a public bathroom, kind of like the one she would go into smoke in when she was a kid, and we see Ben trapped in this clubhouse that they made a big deal about, but we never saw in the first film, as far as I know. Maybe it's been a while since I've seen the first film, and they're both trapped. The bathroom is filling with blood, and we see all these people who abuse Beverly trying to bust down the door. We see Ben in his little clubhouse underground getting filled in with sand, and Ben calls out to Bev that he loves her. He recites the poem, and she realizes it was Ben who wrote the poem, not Bill. And the scene where they call out to each other, she saves Ben. It's weird. The whole film is not that well made, not well done, but the finale almost feels like it's from a different movie where it's following up a much better made film, and they save each other, and he's covered in dirt, she's covered in blood. They realize they love each other. Kinky. And Bill manages to get away from the flooded basement, and with Mike, they all come together. Eddie's dying after trying to kill Pennywise. And Richie, Bill Hader shines in the finale. He really gets to put what should have been the Richie character, the emotion into the Richie character in this finale. He puts everything that we should have seen before here, and I guess it shouldn't be much of a surprise. After going up, they go right back down. They defeat Pennywise by, like in the first film where they showed they weren't afraid of him, they do the same thing here, except it's even more brick to the face dumb. They defeat him by walking up to him and chanting, "You're a stupid clown! You're stupid!" And just chanting, "Clown, clown," in a fuck you way. And yeah, they defeat him by insulting him like a couple of little kids. And then Mike rips Pennywise's heart out, and all joining hands, they squeeze it, and it goes up, because that's how blood works in Pennywise world. And then they get the hell out of there. Can't bring Eddie's corpse with them. Then they go back to the river quarry that they used to bathe in, jump into when they were kids. This time they keep most of their clothes on. And the scene of them in the river, God, it is so well done. Why couldn't the rest of the film have been this good? And the scene where Richie cries and they all join hands and they have to find Richie's glasses, Bev and Ben under the water. I think defying how long you can stay under there without needing air. Kissing, just, it's so good. God. The best part of this film is the ending, which is still a clusterfuck, but had more good moments than the whole fucking film. And I was so glad when we cut to Bill and Mike after all the events of the film, and we see that despite them defeating Pennywise and Bill now being away, none of the losers have forgotten. Like, they didn't start forgetting him now that he's dead, now that it's dead, now that they're away. I like that. I like that they didn't forget the whole fucking adventure just because it was defeated and they were away. That always bothered me. That always seemed really fucking stupid. And we get this overly sentimental final letter from Stan that was supposed to go to the group sometime after his death, and, well, yeah, there is some emotion to it. He tries to justify his decision to puss out and kill himself, but no, it was still pretty goddamn moronic, and I don't know what to say other than repeating what I've said before. Great moments in the end. Not 100%, but really good moments, and it feels like it belongs at the end of a much better paced, better made movie. And It Chapter 2, I did not enjoy this film. I did not enjoy the theater experience. I thought there were a few good moments at the end, but overall this was a just shit film. And part of my theory is the first film was already a big mess. It got a lot of praise, so maybe the director and writer felt comfortable continuing what they did with the first film, but with more freedom, less restraint in how they did it. And there were also 2 other writers on the first film who didn't come back. And I don't know, while I didn't think it was that great, it was much better than this shit. So maybe they should have kept them. And while part 2 of the miniseries was really fucking bad, I would watch the entirety of the 1990 miniseries, including part 2, 3 times in a row in one day, rather than watch It Chapter 2 again. And the very last thing I will say about this film that I can think of right now is we got some pretty interesting cameos. We see Bill in the beginning writing for a movie based on one of his books, and the director on one of those director crane chairs pops in next to him, and the director is, of all people, Peter Bogdanovich. I don't know what to say, just Peter Bogdanovich. I did not see that coming. It was fun. He was fun. He's not only a good director, but he's shown he can be a pretty decent actor in his own right. And we, of course, get a cameo from Stephen King. And this was not a good cameo from him. This was appearing in one of the 1990s miniseries adaptations of his books, Bad. It was pretty lame, and he just serves there to make an in-joke about a criticism his own books have gotten, which is, great book, bad ending. Like, that's a big criticism Bill gets, and it's done throughout the film. They beat it to death right into the ground. And the other cameo, which I found out just before I filmed this vlog, was when Ben's in a conference call about building a new skyscraper. One of the board members is Brandon Crane, who played Ben Hanscom as a kid in the miniseries. So, I don't know, that was just kind of cool to find out. And other than that, I have nothing positive to say about this film. It was a pretty big piece of shit in my eyes. If you want to see it, go ahead. It's your choice. Maybe if you like the style of the first film, you get into it, but personally, I don't recommend it. I hope this vlog was somewhat enjoyable. Hope it wasn't a complete waste of time. Hope you maybe got a little something from it, and I will see you again soon. I can't help it. This movie was dumb in ways that you just wouldn't